Today's video is going to be a little fun, I hope. My immense gratitude to Dee from Through the Pages with Dee. She tagged me in a video to do to be part of a challenge called Favorite People Tag, and I thought it would be interesting to share my thoughts on these favorite people. So I hope I don't disappoint. First, the idea of this challenge is to pick a few favorite people from different walks of life, mostly creative field, and answer a few questions about them with very specific prompts. So here we go. First is favorite author. I have a few writers or several writers who are contending for this position of favorite author, but I think the top on the list is Kazuo Ishiguro. He writes mainstream literature, or general literature, or whatever you call it. Kazuo Ishiguro, and he's my pick for his clarity and mastery in the use of language to weave together human psychology and the eras or periods in which his stories are set. My favorite example of his work is my go-to is usually Remains of the Day, and this is a story of a butler in 20th century England. He's telling the story of his time under the employment of his master while he prepares to visit an old colleague. Second would be Chinua Achebe, and I would like to cite Antilles of the Savannah as my favorite of his work. Antilles of the Savannah is about three characters, or follows the story of three characters, Chris, Ikem, and Beatrice. And this is post-colonial Nigeria, or some country. He didn't exactly mention, as they traverse different scenarios or throes under a despotic government, and just like the Nigerians, or would-be Nigerians in the time after post-colonial period, had to come to terms with who they are collectively as a people, as they deal with issues of corruption, of power, and resistance, and the strains that they put on alliances, on friendships. I loved this story, especially because of the way typical Chinua Achebe, he uses his language and infuses a lot of Igbo aphorisms, proverbs, and folklore in the telling of this story. So Chinua Achebe comes second. Third is A.S. Byatt. I would say Possession. Actually, that's the only A.S. Byatt I've read, and I loved it. I love that work, and I'll definitely be rereading it in years or months to come, who knows. Second prompt, favorite. Okay, we have favorite comedy actor or comedian. Given my affinity to British TV, I would say Bill Nighy. I would watch anything with Bill Nighy in it. I think he has this how do you say it, like bashful banter and panache that he infuses in the characters that he delivers in whatever works he might be in. For favorite political figure, Barack Obama, not for popular reasons. I don't know what the popular reasons are, but my reason for choosing Barack would be that he comes across as a humble fellow more humble than his high profile would or might, you know, predispose him to be. Of course, there is his now entrepreneurial, creative entrepreneurial endeavors, productions of movies that, you know, or works of storytelling that I'm pretty much drawn to and cannot deny. So those are there, and I guess you could judge each of his outputs in that regard by their merits. But I think that's why I think he's my most interesting, not just favorite, but I think most interesting political figure. Third, I have. Oops, I missed something. Favorite serious actor or actress: Denzel Washington and Judi Dench. Again, of course, you know, I can't deny my affinity to British TV because I grew up on it, hence Judi Dench. However, Denzel, whom I have watched or followed, I think has demonstrated through his works that he has a broad range of talents that span. Both of these people, actually actors, have a broad range of talent that spans theater and screen, but particularly Denzel Washington particularly has been, or is to me, a very strong advocate for black excellence, whereas Judi Dench, I think, has kind of proved to me she's quite interesting. I've seen from her interviews and, you know, from her work on screen and on stage, she to me, and I followed her work from the days of As Time Goes By. I'm not putting my age out there, but I've really enjoyed watching her and the depth, and I think that's what really sets her apart. That depth. You get a sense of how devoted she is to the art and how she has honed that skill over years, pre-popular period or popular years, and even after, or even so far. And I just love watching her, especially her role as M on in the James Bond series or franchise. Next, we have favorite film writer or director: Paul Goldman. Not the popular name because he's not so much a director, but he is a screenwriter. He was a writer of Scent of a Woman. I love that movie with Al Pacino and Chris Donnell. He also did, before then he did the one that flew over the cuckoo's nest with Jack Nicholson. So he did that, and I think he was involved in the production of Joe Black with Brad Pitt. I think for anyone who is familiar with these references, you would be able to tell or be able to find similarities in the uniqueness, in the beauty of these works or in these stories, because I think Goldman, God rest his soul, he died last year, 2023. He writes stories with characters that are nuanced, well-rounded, beautifully crafted. Stories that, you know, have just a very bright characters that stand out, are very memorable. And I think Paul Goldman, from the time I first saw his work, my first introduction was Scent of a Woman. I was like, I gotta know who wrote this, and you know, that name has stuck in my head since then. And I think to some measure, and just by so saying that he is my favorite or my pick for most favorite screenwriter. He becomes the standard for a good screen story or screenwriting. Favorite musician or singer? John Mayer. I think he checks both boxes, writer and singer. I like John Mayer because of his moody tunes. Other times you might catch me when I'm not humming nostalgic tunes of Osita Osadebe, if you know, you know, or Bongo Sikwe. You know, I enjoy Mayer's, you know, I most of the time in the car would be humming or playing a mashup of Gravity, or you know, Paper Doll, and I can't get enough of him. And I think last year, as proof of my fandom, Spotify did make a note that I loved or I listened to him 80% of the time last year. I don't know what that means, but there you have it. Favorite inspirational person? I'd say, okay, so you have to forgive me, I can't mention anyone personally or someone attached to me personally, to protect their privacy, and they are, most of the people I know are very private, but I would say someone whose story drives me or intrigues me, I would say is the Trappist monk Thomas Merton. He's a monk and he was a monk and poet. Thomas Merton. My first introduction to him was through his poetry, bits and pieces, until I was able to buy, I think, a collection of his poems. Under the Bridge, one fine sunny day in Lagos. But I did not know the depth of his drive and his inspiration until I came across an old dusty leather-bound copy of hardback copy in a dusty library in Anambra, in a school in all-girls school in Anambra, where I taught. I saw a copy of 7-Story Mountain by Thomas Merton, and reading that was revelatory to me because I got to learn of his devotion to his faith as a Christian, and the irony of his life being someone who was devoted to words, stringing words together as an output, but being sworn to vow silence by his calling or vocation. And it wasn't so much about that antithesis or the irony, but I felt inspired by his devotion to his spirituality and yet to his calling as a writer and poet, through his work, in contemplative poetry and sacred writings. So Thomas Merton for me would make that call as my favorite inspirational person. And so there you have it, D. I hope this wasn't disappointing to you. I hope you didn't have high hopes that I might have mind-blowing inspirational people or favorite people or names, but I hope this was entertaining enough for you. So thanks again for inviting me to take part in this challenge. A few people that I would like to tag are, I'll say, Ethan of Toolsplit, and the Optimus Prime, David Yoon. Those are two people I would like to tag for this challenge, and I'll be looking forward to seeing their responses in their video, in the response video. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy reading.